What are some warning signs of predatory behavior that you believe more people should be aware of? One of the biggest warning signs for predatory behavior is actually internal rather than external. If you grew up in an abusive environment, you likely, consciously or unconsciously, developed a set of coping mechanisms to handle that environment. Then even after you leave the environment, if you encounter a predatory or abusive person, there's a high probability that those coping mechanisms will kick in and you will respond to them in a manner that is noticeably different, and likely seems more tolerant or even welcoming than other people, which in turn will cause them to feel drawn to you and more comfortable being abusive towards you. So learning to recognize your own psychology and change your behavior will go much further in keeping abusive people out of your life than simply learning to spot them in the wild. And this is extremely difficult. Many people who were abused try to take pride in the fact they are not going to perpetuate the cycle of abuse. They don't want to ever be cruel, unlikable, or harmful to others. They don't want to be angry, shouting, pushing, or establishing boundaries because they see that behavior as somehow being associated with the bad, domineering acts of their past abuser, whom they do not want to resemble. However, offering kindness or openness at all times or unconditionally and almost blindly to the whole world is a problem. Your doing so may result in them accommodating cruelty and abuse for a second or third time, and they don't see that they are doing it or how it could be harmful. This is wrapped into many people's wonky sense of virtue, ethics, and fate too. If you're kind to others and a morally good person, you can't possibly get hurt. Right, but this is exactly the sort of target some people are looking for. Sniffing out, as it were. I don't know of a way for people to draw the line. Consciously or unconsciously, we want people to be kind, but not pushovers. Do we have any psychology or trauma experts around here? How does someone reset their barometer for social interactions? Edit. Third paragraph for clarification. I have an abusive checklist I go through every now and then to make sure I'm not in an abusive relationship. It's kinda like, am I able to see friends and family when I like? Do I feel like I need to ask permission to do things my partner has little to do with, or things that are personal, such as haircut or diet? Do I fear for my safety or the safety of my pets? Is any of my house damaged in anger? I feel like someone hitting your wall is a hit that's really meant for you. Do I feel guilty a lot? If even one of these things happen, then I'm out of the relationship. These are hard no's. I almost broke up with my fiancé because he hit a hole in the wall once. But he convinced me the hit was meant for himself. For me, it's more like, can I say no to you and how do you respond? Ooh, that one. Invading your personal space and not moving when they know it's making you uncomfortable. Very true. The person who assaulted me did this. He was a coworker and he would get incredibly close to me, and when I told him that it made me uncomfortable, he would get offended. I was 20 at the time and I was a lower rank than him, so after the third time telling him to give me space, he flipped out again and made sure to tell the entire company that I was a drama starter. I stopped telling him that it made me uncomfortable so people would back off. So he started to do it again and it slowly started to escalate. First his hand on my shoulders, then my waist, and then he would just feel free to grab at me in certain areas. Of course I would push him off and walk away, but he never stopped until he got what he wanted. Swooping in when people are emotionally vulnerable. Funerals, divorces, depression, etc. I knew a guy in university who profited from the funerals of a friend of ours and of his girlfriend's dad. I only attended the first funeral, where he turned all the focus on himself, making up stories in the eulogy to seem closer to our dead friend. His girlfriend told me about the other funeral. He apparently did the same thing and they broke up shortly after. And my mom got a ton of invitations from friends who were psychics and MLM salespeople when my Parents got divorced. They figured that a woman in her situation would be more willing to give them money for palm readings, aura readings, kitchenware, lotion, etc. If you realize you walk on eggshells around them, you avoid saying things because you don't want to upset them or start an argument. In the beginning you might not even realize what you're doing and you just brush it off. Don't brush it off. They'll pick fights over completely contradictory things. 1 week they'll throw a tantrum because you beat them at a game. The next week they'll guilt trip you for letting them W in. The real goal isn't for them to resolve a dispute. It's to argue so much that you get exhausted to the point you always let them have their way. Possessiveness. Needing you to respond all the time or tell them where you are and when. This might seem obvious, but I've played it off as, "Oh, he cares." Quote, "I do this with my husband. I start stressing out that he's hurt if he doesn't answer. I hate my behavior, because I know it's not healthy for me to feel such stress just because I don't have tabs on him 24/7. It's definitely PTSD, abandonment issues from my past, but he did these things to me, so he shouldn't suffer my anxiety. I just don't know how to lessen my internal emotions." Cutting off the friendship group. My ex-best friend's boyfriend came off as super sweet, shy and charming, so she was smitten. Then, very slowly, he basically broke her away from our friendship group by making comments like, "Oh, they're jealous you're not single anymore," and they still are. And that we were creating waves over nothing. We saw loads of red flags from the start and we tried pointing it out to her, but by that point it became pretty obvious she was wrapped around his finger. Some red flags to look out for in predatory women. In the context of platonic female friendships. Greater than making small digs at your looks, taste, intelligence, etc. Slowly chipping away at your confidence. And claiming to be just joking. Greater than always taking, never giving, be it with material goods or in a figurative sense with emotional support and listening. Greater than treating you like a fallback option, acting like they're spending time with you only as a last resort. Greater than showing bitterness when you experience happiness and success. Greater than always changing the subject back to themselves in conversation. You're mature for your age. The people saying this in this context are likely immature for their age. Easy one to miss is people talking in generalities. They are trying to emotionally manipulate you. Example, "Everyone thinks you're a loser but not me." Always consider statements and generalities as the person speaking's opinion only. If they go invisible and like hunting humans in the jungle. Today I've learned about the serious tag, love bombing. Classic trait of a narcissist. I'd never heard of it until I started Googling red flags in a relationship. What's love bombing? Edit, I was answered by a different comment. Repeatedly asking someone out even after being refused multiple times. Asked a girl out like 3 or 4 times. She finally said yes. Like 3 months into the relationship, she completely changes and tells me that she felt pressured into dating me because I asked so many times. Absolutely wrecked me. You played yourself. Word salad. When people pretend to explain something to you but instead of breaking it down and using language you understand, they throw big jargons and examples you cannot relate to. It is men intimidate you and render you powerless. It is only human nature to feel a little embarrassed when we could not understand certain things. If you stay silent to avoid embarrassment, you fall for their trap. People who are skilled at this also know the more scrambled info they throw at your brain, the more overwhelmed and vulnerable you get. So you may eventually break down and do what they want you. I have had many experience with this with people who are supposed to have my best interest. HR people I am getting into business deal with. Bankers, lawyers. Wait, never mind, those are not people who are supposed to have my best interest. Dang. Anytime someone hits me with stuff I'm not familiar with, I ask questions until it's broken down into pieces I can accurately regurgitate in more common terms. I never pass up an opportunity to see if someone's being an asshole or if they're just that nerd who doesn't know how to speak in commoner's tongue. Oh boy, do I know a few. 1. Invading personal space or unnecessary touching. 2. Following you to places you go to often, asking where you're going all the time. 3. Trying to get you alone. 4. Aggression towards friends or animals. 5. Giving you no options, holding things over your head, blackmail or embarrassment. 6. Being kind around your family but rude to others. All these are things I've experienced from stalkers and predators in the past. Gaslighting. Underrated comment. This is like number 1. I think feeling a kind of offness or anxiety around the monsieur. Sometimes your gut is right. Putting on the nice guy image and doing everything they possibly can to convince you that they are nice and good. But they keep pressuring you, expecting rewards from you for their nice behavior, and expecting way too much from you. Being way too keen to establish themselves as a victim. Giving a personal sob story before it's appropriate or necessary. So true. Abusive people often see or at least portray themselves as the biggest victim, even while they're hurting someone else. No empathy for you. They just want you to feel for the monsieur. Most of what's on this thread is anecdotal, though it may have value. Here are 3 patterns that law enforcement officers have discerned from researching convicted sex predators. 1. Seeking out the loners or outcasts in a group and further separating them from the group. This is not to be confused with seeking them out and trying to get them to join the group, which well-meaning people do. In a church or school context, this is the difference between an adult that tries to get the loner to play the game with the other kids and the adult that chats them up and invites them to play video games at their house. 2. Boundary testing. This is when they do something kind of bad to see how the person reacts. Like accidentally touch their bottom or make an inappropriate joke. They are testing the waters. Red flag. 3. Secrets and vices. Often they will give them drugs, porn, or something fun, but that they have to keep secret from their parents. Disrespecting boundaries little by little, wanting lots of things kept secret, etc. Love bombing. It's a technique used by cults and by abusive partners to manipulate emotions and bind the victim to the person group. That's great and all, but what is it actually? Basically pouring love on you. Lots of compliments, gifts, etc. Came here to say this. Over-the-top compliments all the time, worshipping you, etc. Grooming. When you see someone give a kid gifts for no reason, red flag. But by then it's probably too late. Another grooming sign. Asking kids to keep secrets. Often pointless ones at first. They try to make the kid feel special, like this adult paying them attention and keeping secrets together is a special thing. They build up to bigger ones. It's also testing what will the kid tell their parents. Talk to your kids about secrets. It's okay to want privacy as a kid. It's not okay for adults to ask you to keep their secrets. They won't be in trouble for telling you about it, even if they were breaking rules at the time, etc. Abusers will frequently ask their target early on in a relationship if they've ever been hurt before. Ultimately, they're looking for an excuse when they become abusive, as in, they'll say there's something wrong with the target that makes other people abuse the monsieur. It's totally crazy when that happens. They will get to know the victim very in-depth earlier on in a relationship too. Almost like studying the person to look them look bad in the future. When someone seems like they're seeking approval from people by demonstrating a lack of compassion or empathy. Example, I knew a guy who would periodically tell me things like, I saw a car parked in 2 spots. Like the white line was directly underneath their car. So I ran up and kicked a huge dent in the side of it. And he told it to me like, I showed them, right? They'll probably think twice before parking wrong again, right? Quote. My response was, how do you know they weren't in a panicked rush because their spouse called them saying something was wrong with their kid or something like that? Maybe they had to hurry for some kind of emergency and they were coming right back out. And that just did not compute with Hi Monsieur. He was so happy about what he did. He later confessed to me that he murdered someone over a cell phone. And had the same "you think I'm cool, right?" tone to his voice. Like he desperately needed my approval. I tried to tell the police but they didn't give a shit. I couldn't even get a detective to talk to or anything. I mean, it is pretty cool if you can murder someone over a cell phone. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.